Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:30 on the dot. Welcome to the SJVAPCD Environmental Justice Advisory Group meeting. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell phone. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio from members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for roll call, please.
Thank you. Nyamine Martinez. Randeep Graywell.
Here.
Keith Freitas. Laura Gutiel.
Here.
Esperanza Vielma. Thomas Helm. Derek Williams.
Here.
Reina Rodriguez.
Here.
Patricia Matthews. Orchel Cryer.
Here.
Ned Leba. John Sanders.
Here.
Daniel Cunha. Chris McLaughlin. Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will now ask if there are any corrections or additions from the members to the minutes previously submitted for the February 27th, 2025 EJAG meeting. Were there any comments or additions from Bakersfield? Seeing none, how about Modesto?
No
Seeing
comments
none.
in Modesto.
Thank you. And seeing none here in Fresno,
I'll call for public comments on
thank
that.
you.
Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the minutes? Seeing none in Fresno. Bakersfield, are there any public comments on the minutes?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment?
No public comments in Modesto.
Okay, through the chair, there are no public comments.
Okay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved as submitted.
And just for the record, Mr. Cunha has joined the meeting.
Okay. Number 4 on the agenda, public comments. This time is made available for comments from the public on matters that are not on the agenda. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. The public may make comments on each EJAG agenda item during the time allowed for public comments. Attention is called to the fact that the EJAG is prohibited by law from taking any action on discussion of matters that are not on the agenda. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Okay, are there any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. There any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
Okay, thank you. And number 5, chair comments. I don't have any except to thanks again for all being here and being prompt so that we could start as promptly as possible. And I appreciate all of your time. And we'll go on to number 6, update on attainment plans and rules. It was requested in a previous meeting that I will identify each EJAG goal and objective that is being addressed by each agenda item. This item ties into goal objective number 8. The EJAG will continue to be informed and updated regarding air quality and climate legislation and regulation as appropriate. Hi.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Hope you've been good since the last time we met. Again, my name is Emily Nealand. I'm the Director of Air Quality Planning here for the district and back to provide you with some updates on some of our plan and rule development projects. Firstly, for our plan related activities, I previously have mentioned, I believe at the last EJAG meeting, that it looked like, based on preliminary air quality data, that the district had attained the 15 microgram annual PM 2.5 standard. And now happy to report that all of the data has now been certified and it shows that we are under that level. So we are anticipating here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or months, that we will be getting an issuance of determination of attainment by the attainment date by EPA. So we are keeping an eye out for that. In parallel, we are preparing a maintenance plan for both of the 1997 PM 2.5 standards. So that includes this standard, as well as the 65 microgram per cubic meter 24-hour PM 2.5 standard. So we did hold a workshop for that, I think just right after the last EJAG meeting. And we are anticipating to take that to the governing board this year for their consideration. Similarly, in 2023, the district prepared a maintenance plan for the revoked 1-hour ozone standard. So that's been with EPA for their review and approval. And I'm happy to report that on Monday, EPA issued their proposed approval in the Federal Register. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and coordinating with EPA to make sure that they finalize that proposed approval. For some of our PM 2.5 rule projects, just wanted to give a couple of updates, particularly for Rule 4901, which is our residential wood burning rule. We hosted a public workshop on April 30th, just after the last EJAG meeting, and there were no comments largely that were received during that workshop. And so we've just been continuing that rule development project, and we hope to have an additional workshop here in the coming months. We're also continuing to work on some coding rule amendments related to some ozone contingency measure requirements under the Clean Air Act. No substantive updates on that today, but just wanted to let you all know that we're still continuing that analysis and we'll likely be having an additional public workshop here in the coming months as well. So that concludes my updates for today, a little bit brief, but happy to take any questions or comments that you guys may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from Bakersfield? Seeing none. Do we have any members in Modesto?
No
Okay,
members in Modesto.
okay, thank you. Members here in Fresno, any questions, comments? Thank you very much. Okay, and we will go on to number 7, which is update on implementation of district's drive clean in the San Joaquin vehicle repair, replacement, and rebate programs. This satisfies goal objective number 7, work with the district to enhance the effectiveness of emission reduction incentive programs in EJ communities in the San Joaquin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Todd DeYoung, Grant Program Director. I'm here to give you an update on some recent activities surrounding the district's Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program that happened at our June board meeting last week. And I'm going to go ahead and start just by way of a very brief background. Most of you already know this information, but it's always good to sort of set the stage in these types of programs. As you know, mobile sources make up a majority of the valley emissions that are left. Unfortunately, the district doesn't have direct regulatory authority over mobile sources. That's left to the state and federal government. And so voluntary incentive programs are the way we address the emissions from mobile sources throughout the valley. In particular, Valley low-income and priority communities are most impacted by older vehicles and higher vehicular air pollution and higher fuel costs. And because of that, the Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program provides Valley residents with multiple options for reducing emissions from passenger vehicles. You can see there on the slide, we have our repair, replace, and our rebate components all under the umbrella of the Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program. And they're all focused on low income and disadvantaged communities throughout the district. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Tune-In, Tune-Up Vehicle Repair Program, or the Drive Clean in the San Joaquin Vehicle Repair Program. This provides residents with options for reducing emissions from vehicles through financial assistance for smog-related repairs. We work with our program partner, Valley Clean Air Now, or we call them Valley CAN, to implement this program throughout the valley. This started as a traditional weekend screening event program where vehicles would line up. They would come to a place like a fairgrounds or some other large parking area. They would get tested for smog-related issues for their cars, and if they failed that smog test, they would be provided with a voucher for up to $850 in smog-related repairs. They would then take those vouchers to a participating smog shop to have those repairs done. They would get retested, and then the idea was that they would then pass a smog test after that. We more recently developed what's called the direct participation process. So we found that some folks couldn't make it out to these weekend events for one reason or another. And so we were directed by our board to provide another opportunity to receive vehicle repair funding. So basically this direct participation allows residents to connect directly with Valley Can through a phone call or a website and make appointments at participating smog shops to get those initial smog tests done to see if they qualify for the vouchers and then they qualify for the repair funding. The outreach efforts are one of the keys to this program. It's really a grassroots outreach effort that targets low-income and disadvantaged communities throughout the entire valley. And that's the kind of the critical piece to this is really meeting people where they are, holding the events in locations where it's easy for people to get to, spreading out those events all throughout the valleys, large cities, small cities, rural areas, urban areas. All of the 8 counties in the district are touched by these weekend events. To date, we've provided funding for over 15,000 vehicle repairs in this current fiscal year. And the weekend events will continue to provide the opportunity to engage residents on the other types of programs that we operate here at the district. So in addition to getting information about vehicle repairs, they'll often receive information about our other programs, including like our Clean Green Yard Machine program, which is our lawnmower trade-in program, our burn cleaner program, which allows folks to swap out their old high polluting wood stoves or open hearth fireplaces for new clean burning natural gas units and things like that. So we use those weekend events as a way to engage with the community, not just about the program that they're coming for, but about a variety of other programs that may interest them. Our program throughout the years has been recognized on multiple occasions for just our efficiency and our ability to really reach folks and reach residents where they are. The UCLA Luskin Center for Innovation has released several reports. This one up here that's on this slide was released in 2020. And it particularly discussed our response to the COVID-19 pandemic when we couldn't necessarily meet in large groups. That's when we developed the direct participation method, and they concluded that all of those efforts really met our goals in terms of outreach and commended the district's efforts in reaching those disadvantaged communities through the implementation of the program. And so here's just a picture of just a typical weekend event. You can see in the upper left-hand corner all of the vehicles queued up and ready to get tested. We typically have between 300 and 500 vehicles that'll show up on a Saturday morning at these events. And we have seen literally no drop-off throughout the years that we've been doing this. We do go, yeah, Derek. Absolutely.
So at the events, like if it's time for them to get a smog cert for their car for renewal, we're not issuing certs, right?
No, correct.
This
We
is
do
just so they can get a test.
correct.
And under the CAN program, they can't go in to get the smog check with the idea that they're going to get a free certificate for it too.
No, so what we do at these events is a diagnostic. There's no official like smog test that's done. It's a diagnostic, and it's their how likely they are to fail a smog test.
Perfect. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
Sure. Anyway, so we've seen literally like almost no drop off. We go back to some of the same sites, year after year, in some of these larger cities and even the smaller cities, and we'll see very similar participation over the years, which kind of just lends to the idea that there's a need for these types of programs here in the Valley. And so what our governing board did at the most recent board meeting last week here was approve the continuation of the Tune In, Tune Up program for the 25-26 fiscal year, which starts on July 1st. It's funded at a $12 million funding amount that was included in the district's budget. There are 16 weekend events that are planned for this next fiscal year. You can see the table on the screen there with all of the locations. The direct participation process will continue. And we're projected between everything, when both methods of participation were projected to achieve about 18,000 vehicle repairs this coming fiscal year. So moving on to the vehicle replacement program, this was developed back in 2014, and it was really in response to the fact that at a lot of these weekend events, we come upon cars that it's not a good idea to try and repair some of these vehicles. It's just better to get them off the road. And so our board authorized the first of its kind vehicle replacement pilot program. And again, it was sort of derived from the Tune In, Tune Up program. And has really become a model for what the state has done in the last several years through the Clean Cars for All program. There are several individual air districts that are now operating a very similar program, and the state just launched a statewide program for those areas that are not covered by a district program like ours. And so literally our program was kind of the pilot for that and kind of paved the way for these programs down the line. Since 2015, we received about $110 million in state funding to operate the Clean Cars for All program. The incentives in this program range between $7,000 and $12,000, and it's really a matrix, and it's based on your income level, your disadvantaged community status, as well as the type of vehicle that you're purchasing. So there's a table that, if you're the lowest income and you're buying the cleanest vehicle, you're going to get the highest amount, and vice versa. The program includes options for alternate mobility or alternative mobility. Basically, you have the option if you don't want to purchase a new car, but you still have a car you want to scrap, you could get a transit pass that's good in multiple transit systems throughout the valley. And to date in this program, we've replaced over 9,300 vehicles with cleaner models. That includes hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and battery electric vehicles. So outreach through this program, and again, we work with Valley Clean Air now, Valley Can, to administer this program as well in conjunction with the Tune In, Tune Up program. It's really a grassroots outreach model, and it's been lauded for its effectiveness at reaching folks where they are. We use a variety of methods to get the word out. We hold weeknight community-based events that are held at local businesses. Usually it's a restaurant, a pizza place, or a Mexican restaurant within a particular community. It just allows the community members to come out, talk with us, talk with our staff, find out about the program. It's a no pressure situation. But what we do find is a lot of people come with all of the information in hand, ready to sign up for the program. And we'll sit there and we'll fill out the application materials with them right there, answer any questions that they have, and get them into the program. It really is a way to kind of, again, meet these folks in the community where they live. It's a low pressure situation, and it's been very effective at reaching our target population for this program. And the results kind of speak for themselves. We've had participation from more than 98% of the Valley's disadvantaged communities. So we are really reaching those target communities. And again, the Luskin Center has done some reporting on our program and really concluded that it's very effective in reaching the target audiences for the program through our variety of outreach approaches, while still our overall goal obviously is to reduce emissions from motor vehicles, and it's achieving those goals as well. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the program has been oversubscribed. we have more interest than we've had available funding in the last year or so. So much so that we actually had to temporarily close the program to new applications back in December of 2024. In 2025, in March, our board, because of that situation, authorized an additional 9.4 million in state and local funding to continue the program while we continue to actively advocate for additional program funding at the state level. We think it's very important to keep this program going, so we're sort of very aggressively trying to secure long-term sustained funding. And sustained funding is really the key in this program because the more times you start and stop the program, the less people trust it, and the less people will understand that it's actually a real program, a legitimate program. So we want to make sure that to the extent that we possibly can, that we have that sustained funding in place for this program. And so we've been most recently, even in kind of the budget times that we're in, we've been successful at carving out at least a little bit of money for the program. The state's early action budget in May included $17 million in additional replacement program funding. I mentioned earlier that there are several air districts that operate this program. So we're not going to get all of that 17 million, but we are receiving 9 million of that funding. And so combined with the 9.4 million that was approved by our board in March of 2025, that brings the total for this fiscal year up to about $18.4 million. And just for some context, that'll support about 1,250 additional vehicle replacement projects, depending on the mix of vehicles that we actually replace. And so based on the board direction that we got in March, we restarted the program, we relaunched the outreach events, we have a schedule, and we began accepting new applications. We've been very successful, and we got a substantial number of applications during that between March and actually just a few weeks ago. So much so that the current application queue that we have is sufficient to expend all of the available funding that we have, the entire 18.4 million. Depending on, the fallout rate, because some folks, they just won't see it through to the end, and for whatever reason, they'll fall out. So we do have a certain percentage of folks that fall out. So if we do find that we have some additional funding left, we will schedule some additional outreach events for later in this year if they're necessary. And so here's just a couple of happy people with their replacement vehicles for the replacement program. So moving on to the rebate program, the third arm of the Drive Clean and the San Joaquin program. This rebate program was started back in 2012 with the goal of accelerating adoption of cleaner transportation options among Valley residents and businesses. This is the program that provides rebates for new vehicle purchases. Primarily what we see is battery electric in the program. So folks that are buying new electric vehicles can get a $3,000 rebate from the Air District. At the time we started this back in 2012, EV adoption was extremely limited, and there were a few vehicle options, limited charging infrastructure, and really very low public awareness. And over the last decade, EV adoption has significantly increased, and you can see that driving down the road these days with a wide range of vehicle models that are available and increased charging opportunities. We've issued nearly 36,000 rebates totaling over $102 million to Valley residents and small businesses that are making that switch to cleaner vehicle technology. We've seen a significant increase in program participation, particularly over the last few years as this really gains a foothold. It has been successful. And as market availability has increased, what we're seeing is less reliance on consumer incentives is necessary. Overall in California, we've exceeded about 25% of all vehicle sales being electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles. And while we've seen a substantial increase in EV adoption here in the Valley, we're still lagging behind some of the other areas of the state. When we started the program, we were at about 2% And now we're more than 10% of the vehicle population, vehicle sales here in the Valley are electric vehicles. So there's still a need for some incentives. We're not at the 25% that a lot of the other areas in the state are, but we're making headway. This program, again, has been oversubscribed. The last couple of years, we've had way more applications than available funding for the program. And this has led to the closure of the program for extended periods of time. I think last fiscal year, we had to close the program down in like October. So we were open from July. We ran out of money by October. And so due to the program success, what our board approved was a reduction in the incentive amounts. And I've got a slide that'll show the previous and the current incentive amounts coming up. But what we're doing is we're allowing more people an opportunity to participate in the program, but still providing a financial incentives, which is meaningful enough to get them to switch to the cleaner technology. We have 5 million available in this year's budget that was just approved last week by our governing board. And our governing board did act at the meeting in June to lower the incentive amounts. And with those lowered incentive amounts, we think about 800 more Valley residents or small businesses will be able to receive rebate funding. So here's the table that I talked about with the old rebate amounts and the new rebate amounts. The vast majority of rebates that we issue are for full battery electric cars. So that's going from 3,000 down to 2,000, which is still a substantial amount. And then it goes down there. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, well, we don't see a lot of those. Our governing board thought, actually, I apologize. This is slightly incorrect because our governing board voted to keep that at 3,000 because we want to promote hydrogen technology. I apologize for the typo on the slide, but that hydrogen fuel cell vehicle rebate amount remains at $3,000. Plug-in electric vehicles went down from 2 to 1. Natural gas went from 2 to 1, and then super ultra low natural gas vehicles go from 1,500 to 750. These we hardly ever see in the program, but we still wanted to make sure that there were incentives available for those types of vehicles in the program. And so next steps overall in the program, we want to make sure that we have the appropriate agreements in place with Valley Clean Air now to administer both the tune-in, tune-up program as well as the replacement program. And so we are actively executing new agreements with Valley Can at this moment. Their program responsibilities include program management and oversight, outreach, applicant assistance, and then the coordinating of the vehicle purchases. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is we have a representative at every dealership for every transaction. We want to make sure that nothing goes sideways. We want to make sure that they're getting the vehicle that they're supposed to be getting, that the incentive check is applied as a down payment in most cases. So we actually have somebody there at the time the new vehicle is purchased in the replacement program. So their Valley Clan is responsible for that part of the program as well. We're updating all of the program materials to reflect the changes that were made by the governing board. And then really we're continuing to work with CARB, the legislature, and other stakeholders to really identify that long-term funding, which we feel is very necessary to sustain the program moving forward. And so this last step is just the approved recommendations from the board meeting. It was to authorize the new the agreements with Valley Can, accept and appropriate the $9 million in additional funding I talked about, and then approve the adjustments to the rebate program. So we had a lot going on in June, and I'd be happy to take any questions or comments from the committee at this time.
I think that it's been asked before, but because we're in a almost new fiscal year, when these programs are closed because they're oversubscribed, the folks that were on a waiting list, do they have to reapply, or do they are they first in line when it opens again?
It's a great question. And what we try to do is we try to maintain as small of a waiting list as possible. What we don't want is folks to fall into a black hole. We don't want them to be on a waiting list for a year and a half and not hear anything, just as an example.
Right.
We don't want them to be waiting on a waiting list and not hear anything from us and not understand that their project might be moving forward. So what we try and do is minimize the waiting list, but we do have a waiting list. And we will maintain those waiting lists so that if additional funding does become available, they will be first in line. But we do at some point have to shut down the program, and we'll stop taking new applications so that we don't run into that situation where these applications are just falling into this black hole. That puts a really bad spin on the program. We found it, and it's happened in other districts where they've had applications, thousands of applications sitting there with no money. And it's just created a nightmare scenario for their program, for PR, for, people stop trusting in the program. People stop, they already were the government. And so they're already,
Right.
a little
right.
suspect. But yeah, it's a great question. And to the extent that we can, we'll keep those folks that are in the program first in line for when additional funding does become available.
That's good, because I was just thinking, to have to wait 5 years, it's like,
Right.
so discouraging. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that that's the way it's working.
Definitely.
Manuel, I see that your mic is on.
Yeah. Tremendous program, you guys. But again, if I could take the money, and you can keep this on the record if you'd like, take the damn money from the high-speed rail and give it to those thousands that are in those other waiting counties. But if you can, we did the same thing in agriculture. You lower the acreage so you could spread the money.
Right.
And I think that's it really is, because you're at least allowing people to still have a chance.
That's right.
So first, excellent job. Orange Cove, California. Have you done one in Orange Cove? And have you done a program in Porterville?
I know Porterville we have. You're talking about like a weekend.
Yeah, the
event.
weekend to
Yeah,
Saturday.
I know we've been to Porterville. So with towns like Orange Cove, there's a point of diminishing returns. You don't want because the cost of running an event is similar, whether it's in a big city or a small town. But in a very small town like Orange Cove, you may only get 75 to 100 cars that may show up. And so versus if you do it like in a larger city like Fresno, you'll get 500, but you're spending the same amount to run that. But we do administer the weekend events in smaller towns. But I don't believe we've been to Orange Cove, but I know that we've done the weeknight events where we'll set up shop at a restaurant and meet directly with folks. I know we've been to Orange Cove for that. But I don't think we've held a weekend of like a traditional weekend screening event there.
Right, so if you brought, for example, Ken does a heck of a job, but if you brought Orange Cove, Sultana,
Mhm.
Arosi, Reedley, Sanger all together,
Mhm.
say whatever that middle spot is,
Right.
and let's claim it to be in the town of Reedley.
Mhm.
7-8 miles from Orange Cove, right? Sultana, Sultana, Arosi, Dinuba, Del Rey. And the only reason I say that, I know it's a lot of work,
Mhm.
but I don't see an Orange Cove person, and I could be wrong, and maybe Jamie has more info on this than I, but do Orange Cove people drive to Fresno to go do that? Or being that that's 25 miles away, the answer is no,
Mhm.
right? So maybe that's something, if we get more money, and then I have something for somebody to do some work on, but that may be something to think
Yeah.
about. That if we get more money.
Yeah.
That maybe we bring some of the smaller cities together, but we do it in a smaller city. But I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're always looking for new opportunities. We're always looking for new communities that we haven't been able to touch. If you start talking about a Reedley or a Sanger or Dinuba, I think those are big enough that they could sustain. And then if you could draw from their surrounding communities, I think you could make that work. So we'll definitely look at that.
yeah, it's just some
Yeah.
idea.
Absolutely.
I don't remember, is in the 12,000, the 7 to 12,000. Does that include the ability to have the plug-in installed, the charging system?
You can get up to $2,000 to have, it's separate. You can get up to $2,000 to have a home charger installed.
Beyond the 7,000, if it
Correct.
was 7,000?
Yeah. And what we've seen, we've had some success with that. Unfortunately, what we've seen is a lot of these are either they live in multi-unit developments, so apartment complexes,
Yeah.
which are hard. They're renters
Yep.
and the landlord
Not gonna
doesn't
do it.
necessarily want it, or in some cases, the infrastructure in the home won't sustain
Power.
the power. Yeah. But it is an option, and we have had some people that are able to take advantage of that.
Okay, my last question, I was gonna ask this of the board and I forgot. Because I didn't talk about somebody at the board meeting. He's not here tonight, but insurance, being that the auto industry has gone crazy and has quadrupled their cost and they don't care. And that could be in the minutes. That is any of that funds used to help with the first time the cost of the insurance?
It's the idea of the incentive is really to buy down the cost of the vehicle.
Just the car.
Yeah, but what we do, and so it's used as and applied as a down payment in a very substantial down payment in most cases.
Yeah.
But it's generally targeted at the cost of the vehicle, the purchase of the vehicle. But what we do, and one of the things that makes our program really successful is our educational component. We go through from start to finish, not just the vehicle cost, but what it's going to cost to charge the vehicle, what your insurance and your registration and your, all of those annual costs. We want to make sure that we're not setting someone up for failure. We want to make sure that everybody's being set up for success, or at least going into it eyes wide open and understanding exactly what the true cost of owning that vehicle is going to be. It's not just the purchase price, but it's registration, it's increased insurance, those sorts of things. And we'll go through all that, and we'll make sure that they're comfortable and that they understand that before they make those choices.
Okay, then the last thing. Volkswagen just agreed and has paid CARB the remaining Volkswagen penalty of 137 million. And they got that money, I understand. I'm not greedy. Have we gotten any, can we get any piece of that 137 million?
So we are actually assisting CARB in administering those funds. And this has been going on since 2018.
Yeah, the big one.
Correct. And I think this is the final piece of that.
This is exactly right.
Yeah. And so our air district is actually operating a portion of that, administering a portion of that funding for the entire state. There are 3 air districts that are doing that for the entire state. We are focused on school, shuttle, and transit buses. So we have a program. This was the component that we were given.
That you were charged with.
Yeah, correct. And so we're administering that on behalf of CARB for the entire state. There are other air districts that are focused on marine, focused on trucks, focused on, I think there's some locomotive and some infrastructure, and then there's some light duty vehicle funding in there as well. But those are administered statewide, but by other air districts.
We should have just gave you the 137 million and put it where it makes sense.
Right.
Okay. You ain't gonna, a locomotive is 2 million plus, and Burlington or any of these guys have already decided, no way. A truck, 520,000, no way.
Yeah.
You answered everything, but I just want to say, you guys have done one heck of a job with CAN, and when I went to the one last year, and when I heard when I was there, that was the last group because they ran out of money.
Yeah.
I was just really kind of sad because those people were excited.
Yeah.
But the thing you guys did, Ryan and everybody, you treated them with the most dignity and respect, no matter what they looked like and how they dressed when they came in. I mean, you really did. And I saw the passion by the staff and the respect and trying to make sure. But you guys have done one tremendous job. And Chair, they really have. I just can't say enough at what they've done for that program. But you guys, super job, super job. So thank you.
Thanks, Manuel.
I always like to see the pictures that
Yeah.
that you include. I just
Right.
love those.
Yeah.
Derek, you had something?
I have a twofold question. Sure. Actually, Manny gave me the idea on this one. So you mentioned that like the $2,000 could be the down payment when they come in. And I like the idea that you're sending somebody down to help in the process because
Right.
not a lot of people trust car dealerships anyway.
Right.
You know, so that's probably a really good thing. I shouldn't say that on the record, but it is what it is. So are you finding that that's all are these people mostly financing these cars then? And is that $2,000 the only down payment or are there some skin in the game in most cases? Are we requiring that maybe they put in matching funds or there be some?
So, yeah, just so we're clear that it's 12,000 is the, for the,
Oh, that's right,
for the
12,000.
replacement
Yeah, yeah.
program, it's 12. The
I was
rebate
looking-
is
I
going
was
to
looking at the
2,000.
rebate,
Yeah, correct. So that $12,000 can, in some cases, cover the entire cost of the vehicle. But
Okay.
what we've normally seen is that these vehicles that are being purchased are between maybe 16 and 18,000 up to $20,000. So that $12,000.
They're not buying Teslas.
No,
Okay.
and they're generally pre-owned vehicles.
Okay.
Although new vehicles are eligible, but they're generally pre-owned, so they're lower cost. And the other, so there is a portion of that that's financed. But there are many consumer protections built into the program. One of those being caps on interest rates. Because what we saw early on in the program is interest rates at 20 and 22%.
Right.
And so there's a cap on the interest rates that keeps it below 10% in most cases. And so again, that's part of the education that we do. And we work with credit unions and financial institutions that understand the program, understand our goals, and work with our customers to get those lower interest rates in the.
The reason I'm asking the question is my realtor part of the brain reminds me of 2004, 5, 6, and then the crash of 6, 7, and 8 and thereafter. And if you breathed, you got a loan and you got a house. And these people didn't have skin in the game, and that's when the market changed. People just walked away from their homes.
Right.
So my thinking was if they're buying newer vehicles and they're getting loans, and the only money, there's no skin in the game except taxpayers' money.
Mhm.
Are we losing cars? Are people losing their cars at all? Have we seen any of that?
We see very, very little. So we have reporting requirements. They have to tell us, they still own the car, give us the mileage, for several years after it's just part of the program.
Right.
And we see a very, very small percentage of those folks that for one reason but it happens, they're moving out of the area and they can't afford the vehicle. And so they have to sell it, or, they lost a job or their, income situation changed, life happens, right? So
Right.
it does happen, but
you're tracking the numbers and it's
Correct.
small enough that,
correct.
You don't
It's
consider
well
it
within what you would expect to see as kind of normal
I mean, if it
turnover.
was 50 or 60%,
Right.
we'd have a problem.
No. Nowhere near
Wouldn't
that.
do it. They wouldn't. No, they're watching.
And then I had one last question on the money then. The 12 million and the 9 million, I see that the first part is just authorizing the 12 million for the program. The number 2 is to accept and appropriate 9 million of funding. Is that 9 million going to then be part of the 12 million that's going to get spent?
So no, those are two separate. The
Separate.
12 million is
Separate.
for the tune-in, tune-up program,
Okay.
the vehicle repair program. That was budgeted in the district's budget. And that is really just sort of authorizing us to enter into a new contract with Valley Can for the 12 million. The 9 million is new state money that we are accepting into the district's budget and will be used to administer the replacement program. So the 12 million is a contract with Valley Can for their tune in tune up program. The 9 million goes into the replacement program.
So you're not using the 9 million with any of the Valley Can programs, then they're not going to be getting part of that money?
Well, the 9 million, well, Valley Can administers the replacement program as well as
That's what I
the
thought.
repair
So I was
program,
wondering that-
but they're
but you're
separate.
Still keeping them.
Separate pots.
Correct.
They're keeping them
Correct.
separate, yeah.
Yeah, the 12 million is just for tune in, tune up, and it's specific to tune in, tune up. The 9 million goes into the replacement program,
it's all
still
good.
administered by
So in
Valley
effect,
Can.
we got 21 million to work with instead of
Right,
12 million. to work with.
right,
That's all I was trying to get.
correct,
I think.
correct.
Okay, were there any questions or comments from Bakersfield?
I do have a question. If I understood it right, that you have a representative at each car dealership in Central Valley.
So we have a representative available during each transaction. We have multiple dealerships, probably 60 dealerships that we work with throughout the valley. They've signed agreements with us to participate in the program. There are, again, those consumer protections. They have to have very transparent pricing, no haggle pricing on the vehicles. And so at every transaction, so every time somebody goes to actually purchase the vehicle, a Valley Can representative or district representative will accompany them. We don't have somebody at every dealership in the valley, but at every transaction that occurs, we have somebody there.
You get a phone call from the dealership, hey, we got a live one here that needs some help. You send a guy there, or you do it by Zoom, or how would you do that?
It's
And
all
also, what would
done.
be the,
It's all done in advance. So we will get an application from somebody who wants to participate in the program. We will take them through the qualification process. We will issue them essentially a voucher for that $12,000. At that point, with that voucher in hand, they will go out car shopping. They'll go out and find the car that they want at one of those participating dealerships. Once they've found it, they'll contact Valley Can, and then we'll start the process. And then at the time of the actual sale, we'll send a Valley Can representative down to the dealership with the applicant to make the final purchase. But it all has to be
and the
approved in
person that goes
advance.
down there?
Yeah.
The funding for the person to go down there to do help make the transaction happen, that come out of the same funds? Would that come out from administration, or where
It
that money
does.
come from?
It does. A certain percentage of all of our programs is set aside for program administration. And so it would be paid for out of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a comment. Just thinking about the families that usually may not have these opportunities, especially with the incentives being lowered. I know that to many who are in the higher income brackets, it may not matter. $1,000 isn't a lot, but when you're living paycheck to paycheck, $1,000 or $500 might make the difference. And thinking about the replacement program, the $2,000, has it ever been considered to do a pre-inspection to see if the community members will qualify for the charging infrastructure? And if not, if those funds could instead be reallocated towards their purchase so that they can have the same support with incentives, but in a way that really works for them. I think that could possibly help. And it's a lot of the lower income bracket community members that are the ones that are living in apartment units or older homes that I'm just thinking of. That I think it could be a great change.
Yeah, the multi-unit dwellings, apartment complex, folks that, that don't have the ability to install a charger, that's something that we've been working on for several years, and we're working actually on a concept right now that if they don't have the ability to install a charger at their home, we're working on a solution that would provide them that same amount in a prepaid charge card that they could use at public chargers throughout the community. There are several systems that take ChargePoint and some of these other ones that are that are, that you can pay to use, and they're fairly well spread out throughout the valley now, although, they could be better. But we're working on a solution that would allow them, hey, we're going to give you a $2,000 card so that you can use that to charge your vehicle. We haven't worked out all of the details just yet, but that's kind of what we're working towards. So if you can't put in a charger at your house or your apartment complex, we would at least provide a similar amount so that you could charge your vehicle.
So is that funding restricted to only charging purposes, or once again, could it be reallocated towards the purchase?
The maximum amount is for the vehicle purchase is sort of set in the guidelines for the program, the state guidelines for the program. And so it's a kind of a separate amount for the charging infrastructure, or what we're talking about, providing that charging card. They can't be mingled.
Got a question. You said that there's about 60 participating dealerships. Is that list available online so people can browse and kind of see? And can they go to smaller dealerships? And I'm assuming there's probably not private sales involved with this either, right?
No, yeah, they have to go through a dealership. The list is available online. I believe it's either on our website or Valley Can's website. I'll get that information out to the committee, the direct link to that, so you can see it. And it's a combination of large dealers and small dealers throughout the valley. But yeah, no private sales are allowed because of the consumer protections that are necessary in the program.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and move on to number 8, update on district's wildfire prevention and response efforts. This is goal and objective number 4. It increases public participation in the efforts of EJAG. And I think it's a timely thing, being that we're on the cusp of all of it.
I would agree with that. Timely update for sure. Good evening, hello, Chair and members of the group. So I'm Robert Gillis. I'm the Program Manager in the Air Quality Science Department here at the Air District. I'll get going on just some background information, and then I plan to provide some specific details on wildfire situation and some of the work that the district does to help prevent the wildfire risk and the effects from the wildfires, and then I'll hand it over to Jamie. So as some of the background information, we definitely know that research supports that there are strong links to health impacts from wildfire and any kind of just wood burning smoke. Inhalation of wood smoke does cause a variety of health effects, such as lung disease and decreased lung function in children, and hypertension, heart disease, cancer. So a lot of bad effects from breathing in any kind of wood smoke in general. And then just for context, excluding wildfire smoke, another form of smoke is residential wood burning smoke. And those emissions are among some of the largest sources of direct particulate matter, specifically PM2.5 emissions. And those occur mostly during the winter months. And the weather conditions in the winter months really help to, I guess not help, but they hurt. And the conditions magnify the concentrations of the PM2.5, and then also exacerbate the health effects of residents in the neighborhoods. And this infographic, I think, is pretty cool. There's a lot of information on here. I don't intend to read through every word just for the sake of brevity for everybody, but this is outlining some of the different categories of burning that we might see in the San Joaquin Valley. All the way on the left is trash burning, residential garbage, things like that. That's definitely illegal in the valley. It has been for a very long time, but this is, and then there's, as I mentioned, residential wood burning is another form. This is the type of burning that occurs in the home, in the fireplaces, wood stoves, things like that. There's also agricultural open burning. This is a category that's seen, due to regulations, a great reduction in the amount of agricultural waste that's been burned in the valley. And that's the current status that we're in 2025, where the full implementation of the reduction in ag open burning has been reduced. There's also hazard reduction burning. I have a bit of a slide on that a little bit later in the presentation. This is in the state responsibility area, kind of the foothill areas where people are allowed to burn some of the woody waste and create defensible spaces at their homes. There's prescribed burning and wildfires. So these are other topics that we'll talk about in this presentation as well. So this is just kind of helpful information on the different types of fires. So on the wildfire topic, this slide is just some background on some of the challenges that we see here. Emissions from wildfires it can be very enormous, even from smaller acreage wildfires, and these can very, very highly exceed the total mobile and industrial source emissions that we see from different sources in the valley. And these emissions will overwhelm any control measures that we have in place for reductions of air pollution emissions. And these also not only lead to very high PM concentrations, particulate matter concentrations, but also wildfire smoke can lead to higher ozone concentrations as well. And some of this is due to decades-long fire suppression policies and excessive fuel buildup, widespread drought-driven tree mortality, and changing climate conditions such as higher temperatures and drier conditions. And these all cause for more intense wildfire seasons that we've been seeing in recent years in general. I mean, it says Western United States, that's been true, but of course, we've seen a lot of other fires in other areas. Canada specifically is what I'm thinking of. So some of the district's efforts over the years have included supporting local, state, and federal fuel reduction efforts, which would help to reduce the frequency and the severity of wildfires when they do occur. And also the district conducts extensive public outreach concerning wildfire health dangers and then potential actions that people can take to protect their health during wildfire periods. So these wildfires do create planning challenges for the district. The wildfire smoke, as I had mentioned, definitely impacts air quality, results in higher PM 2.5 and ozone concentrations. And then based on EPA analysis, they indicate that 44% of the total PM 2.5 emissions in all of the United States originates from wildfires and prescribed fires. So this is a very big portion of the category of particulate emissions. But there are evolving EPA policies that help with removing some of the exceptional event impacts of these wildfires that impact the air quality, and then thus the planning implications. Some of those values can be removed through official EPA processes. And then recent health research does continue to demonstrate not only that exposure to wildfire smoke is bad, but also that the wildfire smoke emissions pose a higher health risk than just exposure to many other types of PM 2.5. So that's an important part of this as well. So I'll go into just a little bit of the wildfire situation, starting with last year. There was some increased wildfire activity last year that we were observing, Western United States for sure. So the 2024 wildfire season did see more wildfires than we saw the prior 2 years in 2022 and 2023. So some of this increased wildfire activity was fueled by higher temperatures above average. There's more fuels, wetter winter conditions caused more grasses to grow, for example. So then you come into spring and then those grasses dry out with the higher temperatures, and that creates more fuels for the fires. And that's contributing to the more dense vegetation below the 3,000 foot elevation. In 2024, the largest wildfire that happened in California was the Park Fire in Butte and Tehama counties in the Northern California. It ignited in July. It grew really quickly. I'll show in some coming slides, and actually resulted in a lot of structure damage and destruction that happened. This is just a comparison throughout the years of the total acreage of wildfires. We can see the later years all the way to 2025 to date is off to the right there. 2024, as I mentioned, was higher than the previous couple of years. We saw some really high wildfire activity years, of course, in my memory, and a lot of us, I'm sure. 2020 and 21 were pretty bad years. And then 2025 year to date, that's just what we've seen so far this year. And that number, it doesn't show really in this, but just some additional detail. That's actually, we're kind of on pace with where we were in 2024 at this same date. So it's a little bit higher acreage wise and number of fires wise. And then just to highlight some of the severity in the recent years and the growing problem and the increased attention that this gets, of course, 10 of the 20 largest wildfires in California history occurred since 2020. And that park fire that I mentioned that got very big, it actually is the 4th largest fire now in California state history, and that occurred just last year. So this is additional evidence for the increasing intensity and destructiveness of these fires. This is a map from CAL FIRE showing the fire perimeter and growth. As I mentioned, that started in July of 2024. It's in Northern California, covering a few counties there, portions of a few counties. The growth, it grew nearly 350,000 acres in just 3 days. It's very surprising and fast growth. And the smoke from that fire, of course, was very huge amounts of smoke came off of this. And that impacted air quality across California and many Western states. This is a satellite image of that same fire, that park fire, showing this is just a day after it ignited and how large that is relative to obviously the distance of the satellite imagery and how much smoke is coming off that. That was a really big fire. And then to put that into context, this is obviously satellite, but it's a video loop. This is probably just one day. It just closes off there at the end of this video right at sunset. So it's a lot of smoke.
Excuse me, how many acres was that? Do you guys have an idea what it's burning per day, per acre? 50?
It did grow in the first 3 days, about 350,000 acres. The total fire, in just the first 3 days, the total fire acreage on that one was a little under 430,000. So it was a pretty big fire.
Well, normally the wind goes west to east. That's what has saved us in the past from these fires. The bulk of the damage and the smoke is blowing into the desert of Nevada and getting lost in the desert. Thank God for that. But I know that sometimes at night it stills down and then it starts to drift down. That's when the valley starts to fill up. I wonder if anybody's ever tracked the number of hours, like just literally taking these recordings and through the whole 5-day period or 6-day period or whatever, how many hours was the smoke being, you could even kind of come up with an idea of how many tons went east into the desert versus how many tons stayed here based on the airflow and watching the smoke blowing to the east. Do we have any way of knowing how much we actually got here out of the total that may have been released?
There are a lot of growing, more sophisticated tools because of the wildfire situation and the need to really understand these types of questions for the purposes of it's definitely in the real time. It's important when there's smoke around to
Imagine
communicate
if
to
that had
people.
all been coming east to west.
The health effects in the real time are
Oh my
super
God, San
important.
Francisco would have been socked in.
Yeah. And so in the longer period, of course, looking back and understanding these things, it's a complex analysis that helps with understanding and quantifying something. There are a lot of really, I think, pretty cool tools out there that help with pinpointing the part of California or, anywhere where this was at, estimating what types of fuels were there. Heavier fuels burn more, they put more smoke. It depends on how dry they are. It depends on, of course, varying weather conditions, as you mentioned as well, are going to be a big play. I think, Ryan, you're just kind of reaching there.
I mean, the only thing I would say to that, I mean, Robert's team on the air quality analysis, I mean, whenever we have to document exceptional events, I mean, that we do take into account wind direction and all that. There's a tremendous amount of material that's required in order for us to demonstrate when we do see exceedances that are a result of wildfires. And so there's thousands and thousands of pages of documentation for singular events. I mean, it's very detailed and it gets into the information that you're talking about, Jared. So.
A volcano would likely also be an exceptional event for EPA purposes. I think it is. Natural events that are not within our planning, our ability to plan. This is what we're talking about when we say exceptional events. Thanks, Ryan, for the extra detail. And really building off of the point that you made there, Derek, on this smoke impacts, and this is just the end of July in 2024. There were other fires that contributed to the smoke picture as well, but that biggest largest portion up near Northern California where that park fire was at really is what contributed to a lot of what we see going toward the east into the Nevada area as well. But the smoke changes direction throughout the day into the night, weather patterns change, wind change. And so the longer a fire burns, the more likely is that smoke's just going to move around and impact a lot of areas. So
I lost 4 acres of timber in a cabin in the Dixie Fire. So when I saw that, and the Dixie Fire was double the damage or more than double what you had in the Park Fire.
yeah, that Dixie Fire, I think, is above on that previous chart that I showed of the top 20 largest wildfires. I think it's number 2. It sounds like you got it. So just to highlight some of the impacts, local impacts in the San Joaquin Valley later in 2024. So this is after the park fire, I think, was pretty much already done. There were some other fires. And so this is just a progression. It's a few satellite images showing a few days around another fire that was important, although much smaller, but it's closer and it's more local. It's a different time of the year. It's later summer. Weather conditions are slightly different. The smoke impacts us differently. So we track all these different fires. Of course, the ones that are very close have also a very high possibility to impact us with smoke, even if they're not the largest fires.
Maybe Ryan can we say what happened with the LA fire? All of those houses, I think in this discussion, you show the campfire was houses and humans and cars and aluminum and everything, right? Molten metal and all that. The type of emissions that were generated from the LA fire by the homes and the cars. What do we have any idea of the toxicity level that was in that smoke? I do know that when they went back, they had to wear all sorts of devices because of the heavy metals. In the 429,000 acre fire that we just had, right, in 24, right, the big one, that was trees predominantly and vegetation. But the LA fire and the campfire was buildings. So I imagine the South Coast monitoring had to pick that up, right, of what was in that?
So South Coast they actually deployed specialized monitors to measure toxics. And they had websites devoted to displaying and sharing that information with the public, during the wildfire events, because it is really important to know what those levels are like, and in addition to just personal safety, also the your breathing safety, and but yeah, that was definitely one of the priorities, and they did get that up pretty quickly.
Did
for
anything
the
come
public.
here? Did anything come into the valley from that fire? Do we know? Nothing, huh? Thank God. So we didn't have any flow this way from the winds then?
If there was, it was really difficult to track that. We weren't seeing very obvious signs of that. We do have a monitor. So speaking of the LA fires, it happened, I believe, in January of 2025. So that was this calendar year. We do have a monitor along the Grapevine. It's a PM 2.5 monitor. And then since that's the county line, actually it's not our monitor, but just on the LA County side, there is a speciation monitor. It's a PM 2.5 speciation monitor. It's not toxics monitor, but so we were able to look at some of that data from our monitor at Lebec. We weren't seeing unusual concentrations from that. There's other mechanisms. The Southern California fires, this doesn't happen as often, but fires in the north, a lot of times smoke will go over the Pacific, Eastern Pacific, and then that smoke can be blown back in through the Delta area, and then that can come in. So we really track those fires in the northern part of the state as well. And through the chair, if it's okay, I just have an additional contribution to the toxics question. The state Air Resources Board did do a report on that campfire that occurred in 2018 with some analysis on some of the toxics that were coming from that. And it is very clear that when trees burn versus when man-made materials burn, it structures, cars, the toxicity of the man-made materials, it's very dangerous. It's very hazardous. So as an example from that specific period in August and September of 2024 of how we can tell when and where the wildfire smoke is impacting, this graph is showing 24-hour average PM 2.5 concentrations from mid-August through about mid-September. For multiple sites, just trying to select some locations throughout the valley where we can see that in the mountainous area of Tulare County, this site is called Ash Mountain. The air monitoring site showed 24-hour average concentrations that were the highest in the valley at that time. And those reached into the unhealthy for sensitive groups, AQI category, it's air quality index category. So this was the coffee pot fire at that time. And this is just an example of how we do see this on the air quality monitors. And then just this one looks kind of crazy. So the difference here is that this is hourly concentrations compared to the previous graph, which was 24-hour averages. The thing that we see here is that the shorter duration impacts from the smoke, they do reach much higher levels in these cases where the monitors are impacted, but they're shorter duration. They go back down depending on shifts in the weather pattern where the smoke might move around. So this is very important during the incidents when smoke is impacting the valley. These short durations are also very important to help us understand how to communicate to the public. And this is a summary of just some select fires from 2024 and then so far in 2025. And in that table there, we see the Park Fire, one of the largest fires, 429,000 acres. And then some of the recent fires this year. As I mentioned, although the acreage can be smaller, the location, weather conditions, what's burning, all of these things are very important. So we track all of the fires that we see. One of the tools that we use is a website called INCIWeb. It's a federally operated web page, but it shows incidents on the web. So INCIWeb that are being reported or controlled or handled by multiple different fire agencies. And we also look at the CAL FIRE webpage quite often. As I mentioned, there are a lot of contributing factors to our understanding of the wildfire situation and how the outlook for the rest of the year might be. Drought conditions is definitely one of those factors that helps us develop an understanding of what current situation might be. So the left map of California shows the drought conditions for the same time last year compared on the right to the drought conditions for this time this year. So right now, so these are definitely worsening drought conditions that we're seeing so far this year already. And then based on some information from CAL FIRE's webpage, they are expecting, based on this and some temperature and fuels data that they're tracking. And so far, they've seen more fires this year. May was a really active wildfire part of the year. They're expecting more fires really to pick up July through August and potentially even into September this year is their prediction at this point. So some of the ways the district interacts to help prevent wildfires is we work closely with land management agencies. We provide technical support to help with the wildfire response coordination and efforts. We have district staff that participate in a daily statewide call. It's at 1 p.m. It's the 1300 call to help coordinate with other agencies. The state of California, other air quality agencies are on there as well, but also the land management agencies. The call is intended to discuss and really plan and coordinate on prescribed burning, but also that call is used as that same group of people are usually also responsible for tracking the wildfires as well. The district also hosts an annual cooperators meeting where we, in this office here in Fresno, invite land managers that do prescribed burning projects in our air basin. They come here, we talk about which ways that we can best help their efforts while obviously maintaining minimal air quality impacts. But it's all in the scope that the prescribed burning helps reduce the severity and intensity of wildfires when they occur. So it's all through this lens that everybody's coordinating together. And the district also assists in deploying temporary PM 2.5 monitors when prescribed fires are planned, so we can plan for those, and then also during wildfires. And this coordination with the land managers, the district does continue to operate what was a statewide cache. So it puts a collection of these temporary PM 2.5 monitors in Fresno is where we have them. It makes it more geographically accessible to communities fire agencies that need them, they're closer here. So these aren't up in like a far off distance, like in Sacramento, for example, where somebody in Kern or Tulare or Fresno wouldn't really be able to access that. So this is one of the ways that the district helps. And we recently worked with the Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks to provide air monitoring equipment to a local community. And as I mentioned earlier, different types of burning, I said I'd come up with just a little bit more details on hazard reduction burning. So I'll do this slide and then we'll hand over to Jamie. This category of burning allows residents that are in the state responsibility areas, basically the foothills area that's managed by CAL FIRE for these fire burn permits. They're allowed to burn flammable vegetation that's either been removed or cleared away from the buildings or structures that helps with fire hardening and just risk reduction during these fires. And this is the only form of residential or backyard open burning that's permitted in the district. And so it's only in these areas. So burn barrel use, general trash burning is definitely very strictly prohibited.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Holt, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer here at the district. Our number one priority when we have wildfire impacts coming into the valley is really communicating with the public, making sure that they're aware of what's going on, providing them accurate and timely information, and giving them some basic information about what they can do to protect their health when we are having these smoke impacts. We have a partnership with our local public health officers and directors. We actually had an annual kind of wildfire prep meeting with them last couple of weeks, although I say prep, thinking back in the day, we used to say there was a wildfire season. Really, any time of the year, you can get a wildfire, as was apparent with what happened in the Los Angeles area in January. We also work with the Central California Public Health Consortium, which is a group of public information officers with both counties and other agencies that provide public health information to residents of the valley. We have daily communication with the Valley media, both in English and Spanish, when we are having these wildfire incidences. And then we work really closely with Valley schools. We have over 1,000 Valley schools that are official Healthier Living School partners, and we work with them on a regular basis year-round about a variety of issues, but they're one of the great ways that we get information out when we are seeing wildfire impacts. Social media, phone calls, emails, events throughout the valley talking about wildfires is something that is just kind of part of our package of things we talk about with the public. How does the public get air quality information? Well, it used to be back in the day that we really encouraged folks to download our app. When we launched our app about 15 years ago, it was really kind of the only fish in the sea when it came to getting timely air quality information in a really convenient way. Our app's been downloaded over 50,000 times, but in the past 15 years, we've really seen this arena grow in the number of places that you can get air quality information. There's dozens of them. Most of them actually get their data from our monitoring site. So many on our monitoring sites, many of them will have the data that is almost identical to what you're seeing on the app. Just to go through from left to right, those first two images, those are from our app. What's great about our app is it gives you a screen that actually tells you what the air quality level is, a level 2, yellow, moderate. And then you can actually go in and see kind of what the trend is over the course of the day. That's one of the benefits of our app. Our app has a little bit more bells and whistles as far as notification and giving you real-time information. Interestingly, our app also will give you a method to file a complaint. You can even take a picture of something that you see when you're out in the world, an air pollution complaint. Third from the left there is just the Apple weather interface on an iPhone, and you can see about 2/3 of the way down, it will also give you air quality information. The next one is EPA's Air Now. It is very similar to our app. Gives you kind of a little snapshot of what air quality is at that moment in time. Again, it's pulling off of our monitoring system. The next one is probably the one that we really encourage folks to use the most during wildfire season. It's the EPA's Fire and Smoke Map. And what's great about it, and you could kind of see on this image, is that it will show you where the smoke is kind of collecting or tracking. So you can kind of get a sense of how it might be moving. Often it does indeed move to the east, so you can kind of see where it's going. What's great if you're on the fire and smoke map, especially if you're on your laptop or at your desktop, you can actually open it on a full screen and see like the entire United States. And I will tell you right now, Canada is lit up with wildfires. Alaska's lit up with wildfires. And you can kind of see this smoke tracking. And over the last couple of weeks, the smoke will pop down into kind of the northern United States and then pop back up. So it's just kind of a fun little interface. That last one is the Purple Air interface. Purple Air is kind of it's a personal air sensor tool. You can purchase it, say, on Amazon, online. There's a variety of different products like this that are really for those folks who maybe have some type of health issue and want to put a little air sensor maybe in their backyard so that they can get information on exactly what's happening in their backyard. That information then connects via Wi-Fi to their map, and that map will give you kind of their snapshot of air quality. One of the fun things about the EPA's fire and smoke map is that it will incorporate both those temporary monitors that Robert was talking about and a handful of the purple air sites that they deem to kind of be worthy, that are kind of something that can be relied on, reputable. Do they track according to the science of air quality of what's going on? So lots of ways that you can get air quality information right now. We just want people to think about having a way to get their air quality information and access it. We also have a brand new website. If you all have been to our website in the last couple of months, you've probably noticed we've moved out of 2005 and into 2025. So our new website has a lot of different features, but I want to specifically point out our wildfire prevention and response page. Right at the top in the center, kind of at 12 o'clock, just below, you'll see a link to our real-time air advisory network. That's the information that feeds our app. And then the EPA's Air Now Fire and Smoke Map. We also will put, this was taken a few weeks ago, so it's a little bit out of date, but we'll put the fires that might be currently impacting the valley and then just a whole bunch of resources there on the left side. Pardon me? I know, that's what I said. I'm confused. Just below 12 o'clock. Sorry, I was so confused. That's me. It's late in the day. We've had a long day. Another place that folks can go to get wildfire information, we also do a pretty good job of cross-posting with, say, CAL FIRE or any of our land management partners, is on social media. Social media is where most people get their news these days, for better or worse. And we are on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Nextdoor. So we're out there putting information. If you don't follow us on social media, if you are on social media, I encourage you to follow us. We put lots of great information out there. Real-time air quality information, any event information, information about grants, about employment. So I definitely encourage you to follow us on social media. We have a lot of outreach tools, and I mentioned we are in the field a lot talking about all sorts of things. These are just a couple of examples. This is a wildfire infographic. You can see we actually have it in 4 languages: English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi. This is the type of message that we're getting out to the public about what to do, what is PM, how it hurts your health, what are some of the steps you can take in your home. Basic, really simple information in a kind of graphically appealing way so that people kind of understand what's going on. This is a little bit more in depth, but it's our wildfire brochure. We also have this in multiple languages. We have 2 programs that I want to talk about very quickly. One is a Clean Air Center program. This is a program that was set up with funding from the state, and it is a network of publicly accessible facilities that are equipped with high efficiency air filtration systems. These are air purifiers that are about the size of a refrigerator and get, in a lot of cases, just get used on a daily basis in the library or community center or senior center where they're at. But through the funding that we have given the partner, we require them to make sure they're up and running when we are having air quality impacts from wildfires. So for those Valley residents that may not have access to clean air in their homes, maybe they have a swamp cooler, maybe they don't have any type of cooling in their home, maybe they can't afford to run their air conditioner. These are locations up and down the valley, libraries, senior centers, youth centers, where folks can go get some air conditioning, escape from the wildfire smoke, just as another option for folks, knowing that not everyone has access to the same resources. This is a map of where our clean air centers are. We still have a little bit of funding in this program. So if you know a location and you want to see about getting them set up as a clean air center, they do have to agree to do certain things. But with that funding, we pay for one of these interior air filtration devices, large air filtration devices, and then they get to use it in their facility. We also have what we call a clean air room program. This is available to residents living in underserved communities as defined by the state's Cal Enviro Screen tool, which is a huge chunk of the valley, just so you know. We updated this process, and really you just go online and you put in your address, and if you're in the right community, we will send you a air purifier directly to your home. You don't have to do anything else. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. You receive a CARB certified HEPA rating whole room air purifier and 1 filter replacement. We do have some some of our counties are sold out. We've gone through all the allocated funds, but we do have a few in a handful of our counties still available. And then in our AB 617 communities of South Central Fresno, Shafter, and Stockton, we have plenty. So if you think you live in one of those communities, definitely apply. Or check to see if you're in one of the counties where we still have a handful available. These are the outreach materials for our Clean Air Room program. We've been doing lots of outreach, like I said, trying to get people to understand that we do have a way for hopefully you to set up a clean air room in your home. Basically, setting up a clean air room is what we recommend to people if we are being impacted by wildfires. We encourage folks to set up a room in their home, shut the doors and windows, don't be frying any fish, don't be lighting any candles, don't be smoking your cigarettes. Really get that room to be as clean as possible from an air quality standpoint, and then run your HVAC system if you've got one, and then run this personal air purifier. That's the best way to protect yourself when we are having these smoke impacts from wildfires. We do a lot of engagement. If you have an event or you have a group and you would like for us to come out, we would be happy to come out. We work really hard to make sure folks are aware of the program, and one of the best ways we do it is by working with communities. These are contacts. Feel free to reach out to me. One other thing I want to mention that's kind of a little bit of a pivot. We've been doing a fair amount of media this week because next week's the 4th of July, which is crazy that we're in July as of next week. Every 4th of July, we see a spike in pollution from about 8 p.m. to, depending on whether it's windy or not out, to about midnight or maybe even into the next morning. It's directly related to fireworks. Fireworks cause a ridiculous amount of PM. They also include, there's some toxics in there, some heavy metals in there, all those lovely things that make them so pretty also make them really bad for public health. So our message is pretty simple. We ask folks not to light fireworks. If they're going to light fireworks, maybe couple the fireworks, maybe do less, spend half the money on fireworks and grab some glow sticks or some, light up little toys like you'll sometimes see selling outside your little Christmas tree lane areas, those types of things that maybe are also still fun for kids. They can get excited about it, but you're not basically turning on a smoke generator in your neighborhood. What happens is that the fireworks that are lit off in your local neighborhood, that smoke goes up maybe 10, 20 feet, not very far at all, and then comes right back down on you. So you're basically smoking yourself and your neighbors out with some pollution that is some of the worst. We also work with some of our health officers and public health directors, and the spikes in emergency room visits right around this time, both from people, blowing their fingers off or burning themselves, and from respiratory issues that are tied to fireworks. So the last part of that, we had a program, we've run out of funding, but to encourage drone light shows as opposed to the big fireworks shows. So there are a handful of those drone light shows happening up and down the valley. We encourage folks to attend those. The big fireworks shows, fortunately, because those fireworks get shot hundreds of feet up into the air, that smoke tends to dissipate quicker than the millions of fireworks that will be going off in my neighborhood here in Fresno. So if given the choice, go to a drone show. If you can't find a drone show, go to a big fireworks show. And if you have to light fireworks off in your, in your backyard or on your front street, make sure they're safe and sane, be safe, and maybe do less than you have in years past. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, thank you for that. My first question is, the outreach materials for the Clean Air Rooms program, you just have, English and Spanish. Are those also available in Hmong and Punjabi? Okay. With that, I'm going to open it up to Bakersfield office first for any questions or comments.
I have maybe a little bit of clarification. Looking back on Valley app that has been downloaded over 56,000 times. Is that from inception or is it one day or a year that's been downloaded, the app?
That's since we put it up, which we actually we've had 2 versions of the app. So this is the second version of the app, the one that's active. And that's been probably the last 10, 15 years.
Is there a way we can get people to know that there's apps available to the through the programs? Any brochures that go out and stuff?
We actually did a little bit of
times in 50.
Go ahead.
No, I just say it's 15 years, only 56,000 times. Does not that then that's about less than 5,000 a year, I think, or something like that. People download it. I was wondering what we can do to get that up there higher, so people will be more knowledgeable about it. Because I would not have known about this, but being on another board, I found out about this program back, but I didn't have no figures how many times it was being downloaded as that was available, and they gave us a little example how to use it and what you get out of it. So I was surprised it was not more than 56,000. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, we agree, and we do outreach about the app on a regular basis. We could always do more with outreach. I always think there's more we can do. I will say in recent years, probably in about the last 5 to 10 years, we just want people to get air quality information from a source. It doesn't necessarily need to be our app. Now, it's great if they want to get our app, but we did a survey last August, September during the back to school window when we were physically out at schools. We asked parents where they get their air quality information. And while we had quite a few that got them from our app, we found most folks get their air quality information where they get their weather information. So most folks are bundling both of those pieces together as is on my, iPhone weather interface. So we are aware that we love our app. We want people to use our app. We will continue to do outreach on it. We have a great little handout that looks like a little cell phone that we pass out anytime we're out in the world. We've done commercials and billboards and all of that for it. But we also, if folks don't want another app to download to their phone, one more app is going to make my head explode. Wherever they're getting air quality information, we support that and want them to continue checking air quality information wherever that might be.
I was just thinking in terms of education and how we're going out to perhaps the schools and with messaging, with us knowing that wildfires have really been affecting not just the acreage and, you know, our air, but also families. These are faces, these are lives that have totally been changed. I'm wondering if some educational material can be created to really pull at the heartstrings and, you know, show the impacts of what a small fire or a, you know, a young, unknowledgeable arsonist was just playing, perhaps due to the lack of knowledge. If we could do some education in the schools to just make sure that, you know, people really connect the dots on how families are being affected and the major disasters that can be caused by one decision. Yeah, I haven't seen all your videos, so I'm just wondering if something like that has been created where we're really connecting the dots with, you know, the effects to families.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We don't have a video just like that talks specifically about, you know, don't play with matches because you might start a wildfire, or, you know, but some of those messages. I do know that some of our partners at CAL FIRE and some of our land management partners do some of those messages. And so maybe it'd be a great idea to partner with them and get something out there.
Okay, seeing no other comments in Bakersfield, I'll open it up to Fresno, and I see Derek.
Okay, well, I got some ideas listening to that, just throw them out there. You know how you do the calendar every year? You can actually pick your subject that you want to have the kids do their calendar stuff about, and you could make the danger of fireworks, or you pick that subject and let that be 1 year subject, and all the kids get taught about it in the class, and they do their drawings for the calendars, just as an idea. The other thing is, I hate commercials on YouTube more than anything. I'm watching stuff on YouTube and I have to wait for that 15 seconds to go by or that 30 seconds to go by. I don't know why we couldn't go to literally get involved with the legislators, get hold of YouTube and say, every time a Valley Air ad runs on, and there's a hit on the showing that it's been hit, it's there. Every time that ad runs, it's another check mark, and it builds up towards literally a state tax deduction. They can get it. It doesn't cost the state a dime, but YouTube profits can have a little bit of their money tax free. So we're going to give them a write-off. Can't do it with the feds. We can do it with the state. They can get a state tax write-off every time a Valley Air. There's a lot of commercials from a lot of programs I'm sure this could go for besides just Valley Air. But we could be saturated. Everybody that goes on YouTube or whatever it's going to be online could be getting hit with these commercials, and it would be free because all they have to do is just, they're gonna give us so much airtime and run so many commercials. Everyone's gonna get sick of it, but everyone's gonna see it and they're gonna learn. That was just 2 comments I had on that. I had one question when you mentioned this is probably the real more important part. The funding for the clean air rooms, you only have a little left here, a little left there for different counties. So obviously the AB 617 has priority for fundings because you say you got plenty of money for that. Can we get some changes made, or is that a law thing where if the money from this, if the units for AB 617 communities, if they're not getting subscribed, rather than having that money sit there or the units sit there, at some point, can we be able to allocate some of those units to the non-AB 617 communities? So they get used.
Yeah, so one of so the state has guidelines on how that money can be spent, and we have to, follow those guidelines. And in looking at the successes for the program, one of the desires was, how do you take the successes from the program, from the selected communities, and how do you transfer that to other communities across the state? And that was one of the ultimate goals of the program. And, because of our successes that we've had with the program, we've been able to make recommendations on the guidelines to open up, funding allowances for more things. And so that was actually added as a possibility. Now, obviously, there would have to be things that would go on in our board in order to allocate funding, but the state has made it so that way that those types of programs can be funded using that fund more broadly. We still have funds, and we still have, we applied for and received a supplemental environmental project award from CARB. So it's basically funded through violators. And so we still have, I forget how much, several $100,000 that we're hoping to get from the state to put that money back into the Valley-wide program. And I think as we exhaust that funding, then I think we'll continue to look at how we can support those efforts.
Thank you. I just didn't want to see 10,000 units sitting someplace not getting used.
My phone didn't go off because I turned it off. Being that I don't know how to do an app or a, what do you call it? A social media gram or Instagram or something. I turned that thing off. I turned it off, didn't take any chances. Sorry again.
Okay, seeing no other questions, comments, thank you very much for the updates. We appreciate it.
I like this one. This is great.
And we'll move right into the AB 617 and community engagement update. This goal objective is for number 10, works with the district to enhance the effectiveness of the district's AB 617 program.
Through the chair, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Ng. Many of you may be familiar with Stephanie. She was the program manager overseeing the district's community strategies and resources department. Some of you may not be aware that Jessica Olson has left the district and is now pursuing her master's degree at Stanford, starting in a week or so. So we wish her nothing but the best. And Stephanie has assumed the role of the director of the program and has been doing a fantastic job. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to her. Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone, chair and members of the committee. I am here today to provide an update on AB 617 implementation and also some Valley-wide community engagement efforts that we're undergoing. Just by way of brief background, I'll just start on this slide that kind of sets up where we are doing the core of our AB 617 work. We have 4 communities that were selected by CARB to undergo this process: South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and Arbor Lamont. In all 4 of these communities, we are implementing community air monitoring as well as community emission reduction programs with a group of what we call a community steering committee, or CSC, that's made up of residents, stakeholders, businesses, community organizations. A few updates that we have for you on AB 617 implementation include our ongoing effort to really work and engage with community members in person, kind of meeting folks in their space. 2 of our communities, Shafter and Fresno, have actually hit kind of as the state defines their 5th year milestone with their SERP. As kind of the state defines, there is a 5-year kind of milestone, again, with the SERP, and they hit that in February. But it is our commitment to both of those communities that even though we've kind of hit this milestone, we are still committed to doing work with these communities. We're still continuing community air monitoring, really trying to finish out those high priority measures with these communities. And so what you see here is actually our latest meeting. We were just in Shafter last month, where we are, again, as I just mentioned, we were checking in on how the data looked for the community air monitors. We were working with the committee on a really high priority measure of theirs, vegetative barriers, and just having really great conversation and engagement with the community. A few other things that we have going on that we're looking forward to this summer. We do have this coming Saturday a combined lawnmower exchange and tune-in, tune-up event in Stockton. These are really, really amazing events. Prior to this one, we've had 8 other events across our 4 AB 617 communities where we've exchanged over 1,800 units. They're really great events. I know we've talked about them before, but as a reminder, these are really kind of what we call one-stop shop events where community members are really able to just drive right up, bring their old lawnmower, we help them dismantle it, and they leave the event with an electric mower free to them. And they get to also leave potentially with signed up for a free air purifier and with outreach materials from the district as well. We find them to be events that really reduce the barriers for participation in our district programs, and we get a lot of great feedback on them. This Saturday, we have 549 mowers reserved for the event. So we've seen a lot of interest throughout the community. The last 4 events that we've held, we've actually partnered with Valley Can to combine our lawnmower exchange event with actually the program that Todd just mentioned earlier, Tune In, Tune Up, our vehicle repair program. So we're running 2 simultaneous programs while also helping sign eligible residents up for air purifier, and then also just talking to them about our general district programs. So really a great opportunity to connect with residents across the board. Another thing that we're looking forward to that's happening just in a couple of weeks is a vegetative barrier meeting in Fresno on July 14th. We have partnered with Tree Fresno as a part of our South Central Fresno urban greening and vegetative barriers measures. And they've been working really closely with businesses throughout the whole boundary in Fresno to connect them to these resources. And so on that meeting at the 14th, they've invited businesses throughout the whole boundary to come learn about the work that they've been doing, and then potentially see if they might be interested in working with Tree Fresno to plant some barriers at their business. Another update we have for you all is I think you all are aware that this year's state budget has been a really difficult one. In the governor's proposed budget, we did see that there was a proposal to cut funding for the AB 617 program. And so given kind of this, we worked with all 4 of our community steering committees to advocate for ongoing funding, again, due to kind of the importance of the program and community engagement efforts throughout the Valley. This was a pretty short time frame, just given kind of the ongoing discussions and meetings that were already kind of underway. And so we, in a very short period, in 3 days, called all of our CSC members. We reached out to community-based organizations, and we actually had over 40 CSC members and organizations sign on to this letter. Right now, kind of the outlook is we are expecting some more information to kind of come out in the fall about what this upcoming budget looks like. We are hopeful, but we are continuing these advocacy efforts so that we can continue this really great work that's happening in communities across the Valley. And Jamie mentioned it as well, but we always, aside from, in addition to this AB 617 work, it's always our goal to continue partnering with Valley communities, really across the whole Valley. So we have been invited to participate in community meetings really across the last few months in a lot of different spots. In the next couple of weeks, we are planning on being in Exeter, Modesto, Delano. We've also been coordinating with the city manager in Visalia. And so just an open offer, please reach out to us if you'd like our team to support your work, to come to a meeting and talk about, air quality resources, and just engage with, the community members that you all work with. And finally, I know that we just talked about this a lot, so I won't spend too much time on this, but I think maybe bolster Jamie's update, we do have some numbers about our Valley-wide Clean Air Room program. With the Valley-wide program, we have distributed just under 8,000 units. And Jamie did highlight it, and I just want to emphasize, we have a very small amount of units remaining across the whole Valley. So if you all have folks or know of anyone in Kern, Merced, Stanislaus, or Tulare County, please direct them to the website or have them call us. We'd be happy to help sign folks up. And one thing I will add very, very quickly, though, is maybe, Derek, to your question about kind of the opportunities with AB 617 funding and not wanting to, seeing an opportunity there. Something that I will share that we are, because it's always on our mind too, of what ways we can make sure this funding is getting out into the community, is we are, as kind of Ryan described, is allowed through the state guidelines, looking to expand the program to not just be just for residents. We're looking to also expand in, as the state guidelines allow, to look into daycares, preschool, senior centers as well. So I think that could definitely be a great opportunity. At these places, the units are typically much larger as well. They're not, a $200 unit. They're, upwards of hundreds of dollars. So I think there's really a lot of great opportunity there to continue getting air purifiers out in the 617 communities.
I'd like to add one more thing. When the previous slide that showed the program, it only talked about being available for disadvantaged communities. And so our board provided feedback that it shouldn't only be focused on disadvantaged communities. It should also be eligible for anybody that was low income. And so that was one of the changes that we made to the Valley-wide Clean Air program. So anybody that is either living in a disadvantaged community or is low income would qualify for this program and apply for it. And the documentation that we require is very minimal.
Sorry to interrupt, but there should be documentation required anyway on the income regardless of where you live, right? Because there's people with tons of money that still live in disadvantaged communities.
That is true. We did not. We're trying to make this understanding that the amounts that these units are. I think there was a determination that the potential for the people that maybe could afford it on their own versus the time and effort it would take to filter those people out, that it would probably cost more to track and monitor that versus making anybody in a disadvantaged community eligible.
If my friend pulls up in her Rolls Royce, please don't give her one.
All right, I'll tell her Derek said, do not give you one. All right.
And that's my update. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, with that, we'll go back to Bakersfield first.
I had a technical question on the units. Do you guys have the square footage that it cleans and in how much time? Usually it's like every half an hour, it does like 400 square feet. Some of that, the stats on that?
I don't have those exact numbers in front of me. I don't know if Ryan does, but I think as Jamie described, it's typically for the size of a room.
They're designed for like a large room in a house. It's not designed for like an office space or anything like that. They're designed to filter the air in rooms where people are currently at. That's where they're most effective.
We do have that information. I
Yeah.
think Ryan and I don't know it off the top of our heads, but we do have that information. So we can certainly follow up and send you that information after this meeting.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll open it up to here in Fresno. I see Manuel is queued up and ready to go.
Yes, I am amazed you don't have the square footage. I really am. A sizable room, a 30 by 30 should be sizable, right? But great job. You have 126 left out of what, 8,000, huh? So you've done a great job. You really have on the outreach. It's tremendous. A large monitor for schools to use for like in the summer, or that they have programs. And Ryan's know where I'm going, I think. Does a private school eligible for help with one of these air monitors, or the funds cannot be used for a private school?
so, we all have to follow requirements. And so the California Constitution actually prohibits us from spending it on secular schools.
So if all of the 350 families that go to that school, they can each apply for one?
They can individually apply for the program if they are low income or live in a disadvantaged community,
But it's
correct?
just the facility.
The school themselves would not be able to. But that's where we can be creative.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
so
no.
if, we talked a little bit about CARB supplemental environmental programs. If we were approached by someone or they wanted to apply for it themselves, that would be a project that would be eligible under the state's program. And so that may be an avenue to fund that. Because once again, it's violators paying for it versus money coming from the state.
Right, because people are people, kids are
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, and we were internally thinking about, how we could support those efforts. And, that was something that we were considering as well.
No, I think the board did a great job by allowing it to go outside of the 617. I think that's super. But again, you've done a tremendous job to have that many left and to still have the demand. But I think opening it up is super. So again, Ryan, you and the team, super job, super job.
Thanks, Manuel.
Okay, seeing no other comments. Item number 10, district comments.
Good evening, everybody. Ryan Hayashi, Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer. I just have a really a few comments to make. I just wanted to thank once again the grant committee, the EJAG grants committee on the recommendations that they provided for the district's budget. Those were incorporated into the district's budget that was passed in the last board meeting. And so will be part of our next year's budget. The other thing is every year, Jamie's team puts together the annual reports to the community. Happy to say that these have all been printed out. They are in English and in Spanish. And if anybody's interested, we can get you some. And then in addition to that, we also, we attend a lot of public events. And so, her offer to let her know of events that you may be happening in your communities, please let us know. We love being there. We love being able to get out in the community and share information about the district, ways in which individuals can protect themselves, actions they can take to help protect their own air. In addition to that, we definitely believe that helping to educate kids early is really important. And so they put together little booklets that are very informative in a very simplistic manner about air pollution and just kind of that we try to think of as many avenues as we can to help inform the public about air pollution and things that they can do. So, and those are the updates that I had for the group, and appreciate everybody being in here tonight and sticking around. We were here the whole 2 hours.
5 minutes to go. Okay, number 11, potential future EJAG meeting agenda items.
I think what I'd like to know where we stand. It's probably going to be an ask in writing. So we may have to write a letter from the EJAG, from the chair, to the San Joaquin Valley Board Chair, to the APCO, to the governor, if we can have CARB talk to us about where do we stand with all of these waiver dismissals, and what is their attempt, and what are they looking at the potential 9 microgram issue. Are they, if they're being that the waivers have been all pulled, are they going to go after more of the businesses and stationary sources? And maybe even after my cows won't be able to burp or chew their cud maybe. But I think we need somebody from CARB to explain to the EJAG group what has happened. We've had it somewhat done at the CAC, but I think it's really important for us to know as an EJAG community, what does this mean? Especially the 617 areas and all the stuff that we're trying to do to help clean up the air. And then, but I don't know what, I think we have to ask it in writing. We have to ask CARB if we can have somebody do the presentation, if they could do that. And I know they're probably not going to do it because it's in the evening. So I don't know, but we should at least ask. Nothing hurts to ask. So I would ask if we could do that on one of our agendas or meetings. That would be great.
So you're asking
For CARB,
give it to come to
not come, but to do a Zoom.
do a Zoom meeting. Okay.
And we're dark in July, correct?
Correct.
And we come back in August?
Correct.
Okay, so if it's August or September, October, oh, so yeah, so it's either August or October would be great.
Okay. You and I will work on that offline. Okay. Thanks, Manuel. Derek.
No, the only thing I wanted to respond to Manuel, I just was wondering, I don't know that our purview lets us send a letter directly from here to ARB. I would think that we could send a letter or a request through staff to our APCO and ask our APCO to send a letter like you were talking about to ARB, but I don't think we can write a letter to ARB, can we?
Yeah, I definitely think there's opportunities. I think, like we can discuss
can,
with
yeah.
Manuel and Laura in regards to what that may look like. That may not require a letter. So we would definitely, talk internally about what would need to be done. And then we can, work with the chair and
I was just picturing a letter from the APCO to ARB with a letter from here and a letter from the CAC attached,
Well, the CSC's already got its,
it's in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
CSC's already have its opportunities.
Yeah.
And
What
I
about the
just,
governing board? Were they on it?
I just think, I think we can work with Laura and Ryan and Samir. We can try to do something.
We tried.
Whatever.
Just skated around that one.
Yeah.
Was there anything in Bakersfield? Did anyone have potential agenda items for the upcoming meetings? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the second opportunity for public comments.
Okay, do we have any public comment in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Seeing no members of public in Fresno and none online.
Okay, and then last but not least, EJAG member comments, anything in Bakersfield? Seeing none, my only comment is once again, welcome Stephanie. We appreciate you joining our group and updating us. And I promise I won't give you the runaround of who are you again. And I appreciate all of staff's time. And those that have left, I mean, I think that everyone does an amazing job. And with that, I think we'll close it right at 7:30. Thank you all for being here.